So there's a lot that I can say about what's going on in the world right now, but I wanted to say this. I've mentioned this before, but I was raised in a Christian conservative environment. I went to Christian private school for many, many years. I was very deeply evangelical, and the church is the very first place that I ever really experienced racism. In fact, I have a very fond memory of someone who I used to think of as a friend of mine being called into the principal's office with me because he was constantly referring to me as boy. I'm a trans woman, by the way. Now, back then, I was innocent enough not to fully understand what was going on. I said, "You're just calling me boy," and that's what a lot of people call me. And like, yeah, there were reasons why I didn't like that. But I didn't understand that it was a racism thing. And part of the reason why we went to the principal's office and had a whole conversation about it was that, well, that was racism I was experiencing. And within the environment that I was raised in that was predominantly white, I was in private Christian school that was predominantly white. And when I went to public school within my community, which is predominantly Chinese and Korean, I was in a predominantly Chinese and Korean community. But for my formative years, I was surrounded by white kids who were begging to figure out a way to say the N-word and were constantly trying to get me to react to their racism. Recently, I did look up that kid who I used to think of as a friend way back in the day. And would it shock you if I told you that he was a Trumper? Would it shock you if I told you that his Facebook page is riddled with racism and bullshit and slurs and all of the very things that we're fighting against right now? See, one of the things that has taken me a really, 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 really long time to understand is that there are so many people, no, not just white people, who rely on anti-blackness. It is a source of entertainment for them. It is self-soothing for them. It is something that they rely upon. And you know, in my life, I've often had a lot of experiences with people that have been confusing to me. I go out into the world and people are like, "Oh, what's going on with you?" Right? People who will have a particular reaction to the way that I speak. And then when I tell them that I do college presentations and that I've presented at over 40 universities across the country, they act as if that is so far-fetched, as if that is something that couldn't happen, as if that's something that should not have happened. And frankly, I've even been in relationships with white men where them just being in vicinity with me for too long, and I'm just going to be frank with you, seeing, God, this is going to sound arrogant, but it's true, my greatness bothers them. And it's been so historically confusing to me because I've never really understood why. This was a big issue with my ex and I, where he would see me be successful and he would say that he was proud of me, but he wasn't. He resented it every step of the way. And in fact, early in our relationship, he kind of liked the fact that when we met, I was in a less better off situation, that he could swoop in and be the hero. And that was kind of a central part of our relationship, right? Like the fact that he could be that guy for me. And when I didn't need him anymore like that, that's when things really changed a lot in our relationship. And he started to resent me, right? And this is like a thing that I've seen outside of my romantic relationships, right? Where you have these people, white people, who will desire some closeness to you, not really closeness. Let's rephrase that. They want to be in your vicinity. They want to be in your vicinity. They want to be in your vicinity, but they mostly want to be in it to humble you. This is something I notice with white women constantly. White women are constantly saying snide things to me to humble me, to undermine me, to assert their power over me. And I find it funny. I've found most of this at this point funny because what I've realized is that they have a dependency that I literally don't have and have never had to feel the way I do about myself. You know, a lot of times when God, this sounds arrogant. A lot of times when I walk into a room, people are kind of surprised by how confident I am. And I've had a lot of conversations with white people about my confidence and like, why am I so confident? And da 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 da. And why do I? And it's almost as if they expect me to hate myself. This is the thing I've realized. There are people who really, really, really rely on my self-loathing. One of the ways this has come up for me is people will compliment my appearance. They'll compliment the way that I speak, but they have to basically insinuate that it's not Black, right? White people will frequently look at my features and be like, oh, are you mixed? You know, I had one white woman say to me that my high cheekbones are like a European feature. Now, mind you, I'm adopted, but as far as I know, I'm Black mixed with Black, right? And I love my Black features. I haven't always. But with time, I mean, especially when I see all these people get pumped and snatched, right? Yeah, I really started to love my features. And I actually have become more aware of the fact that I live in a culture that is constantly trying to get me to feel as if I'm not beautiful, that is constantly trying to get me to feel as if I am not worthy, that my body, the way that it currently exists, is not in proximity to humanity. But I know, and I've never questioned it really, but they do every day. And it's because there's a relationship they have with people like me where they need me to be humble. They need me to be lower. They need anti-Blackness. And it's an unfortunate thing because ultimately, I think it is a very weak thing. I think that it is a true sign of weakness when you can't at all stand on your own 2 feet. What we're seeing right now in our culture is white men finally realizing that white supremacy has made it harder for them to succeed. They've relied on it as like a fact of life that white men were inherently better than everyone else. And they really can only deny that reality we all know, which is that this is a delusion. As China becomes more powerful, right, they're not going to be able to sort of live off of this thing where they say that, well, we're the best, we're the strongest, naturally, by default, we are as white people better. And on the subject of China, I grew up in a predominantly Chinese community, actually. It's not lost on me some of the pretty common interactions of, anti-Blackness with Chinese and Korean folks. I grew up in a predominantly Chinese and Korean community. Not unfamiliar with this, right? The reason why a lot of Asian people, which is so funny to watch, a lot of Asian people in reaction to people boycotting or wanting to boycott have been like, oh, they basically just shown that they're racist. That's what I was going to say. And Asian people, because of like the model minority thing and the way that white people have colonized them and attempted to emasculate them so much, they play into anti-Blackness to gain favor for white people. And right now, there are white people who are trying to encourage like these conflicts between people of color so they can they can back away and just kind of watch, right? And it's interesting to kind of be aware of it. It's interesting to kind of be aware of all of this and how people always kind of triangulate Black folks. And I got to be frank with you. Nothing has made me feel more powerful. I've been feeling this way for the past, I would say, 5 years pretty strongly. I realize that I shouldn't live in a way where I'm asking for permission, like at all. Because when you really think about it, a lot of stuff revolves around us. It really does. And I don't need for the world to revolve around me, but you're obsessed with me for a reason. And so I've had to recognize that if they're going to be as obsessed with me as they are, I got to be at least a little bit more obsessed with me. Because racism's impact on me has been that I've not allowed myself to do anything other than defend myself against racism. So here we are. More to come.